Hello and good evening. It's Ben Chambers, UK sales manager for the GlenAllachie distillery, coming to you again for another Thursday night tasting session. This evening, I am joined by our operations director, Richard Beattie, who is in charge of all things distilling on a day-to-day basis and the general operating of the distillery. We are going to go through 3 whiskies this evening. We have the 12-year-old GlenAllachie, which we'll hit first, followed by our award-winning 10-year-old Batch 3 cask strength, and finally followed by the recent World's Best Blended Malt winner, the McNair's 21-year-old. So hopefully you've got lots of good questions for Richard. As I said, he's in charge of the day-to-day operating of the distillery. So please throw those at us as we go through the various whiskies, and we will be closing off again moments before 8 o'clock for the clap for the NHS, which I believe is happening again this evening at 8 p.m. So you've got us just for a short, sweet hour, and hopefully we'll tell you a bit more about GlenAllachie to add to what Ronan and I were going through last week, and we'll also be able to answer a few more of your questions and anything you want to know, basically. So,
well, Richard, I'll maybe take over now, Ben. It's a little bit difficult. I'm not used to this. Thank you for inviting me to your now seems to be regular slot on a Thursday evening with, I'm sure, various members of the crew over the period of weeks to come. I noticed when you showed your whiskies, you've got a far better volume of your 21-year-old than I do. I'm totally not done so well on the... Or I've been handing out too many drams. So I'm very much looking forward to trying these whiskies again. They are, well, the 2 of them are the mainstay of the core range. And then we move on to the McNair's, which has done fantastically well. Lots of effort by all the team, but obviously Billy in directing it and pushing it forward and getting the awards that it's received recently is just fantastic.
Yeah. So have you got yourself a glass?
I do.
Have you got yourself a bottle of the 12-year-old?
I certainly do as well.
Shall we jump straight in?
Let's go for it. So this is the polished bronze colour that you guys talk about. Looks absolutely fantastic. Well, I'm very much, as I say, looking forward to this one.
Well, our 12-year-old is very much the backbone of the core range of GlenAllachie, and comes through a combination of primarily 3 different casks. It's, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Richard, virgin oak, Oloroso, sherry finish, and a small amount of PX punch-ins on the finish as well.
It's probably a larger amount of PX. PX is the sort of key to that finish, that maturation movement that we do. We always start it off with an American oak barrel, leave it for a number of years there. You see it mature, you see it mellow, you see the flavors that it picks up. And then that's when the real skill from our master blender comes in, and he takes it and moves it forward, choosing the right batches to put into whichever. But predominantly PX, Oloroso, and then a little bit of virgin as well, to add all of those extra depth and extra character. Lovely butterscotch on the nose, some honey. I think in earlier expressions and this one, you get sort of maybe a little touch of rose Turkish delight. It's just fantastic dram to really appreciate. You're really looking forward to tasting it once you've nosed it. Just absolutely a joy.
No, I totally agree. You know, we talked a little bit about this last week as well. It's one that, for me, when I first joined and started and saw a couple of bottles, kind of got me really interested in what was going on, because, you know, looking at the 12-year-old, it's batch produced. It's not one of these huge mass market single malts. Billy does this, you know, in small batches, and I'm fortunate enough to have a little bit left of a previous bottle to highlight. You'll see the color on one of the previous batches, and then you'll see the color on the new batch. Now I know he's blending those casks together to give, you know, as good a finish as he can and continuity in the range. But it's really interesting to see the all natural finishing coming through. You know, no use of caramels, no use of chill filtration, which is something that sort of follows through in every every SKU, every bottling that comes from GlenAllachie. And as you said, wonderful nose. Yeah, I mean, you hit all those notes of.
You just go back into it, then you look in the background, you see some raisins, you see some mocha as well. I mean, it is, as you say, the core range all is based around that. If guys are on here and they're wanting to ask questions specifically about this or any other aspect of the distillery, please make sure you do, because we're here to try to let you enjoy the GlenAllachie as much as we do. Not only the actual product, but also the process of making it. There's a great team involved in it up in the distillery. We've got a good couple of production guys, and then 5 in the warehouse that are really committed to whiskey, the real passion to it, and driven by it to make it as good as it possibly can be as well. So here we go. Let's try it.
Well, while Richard does that, I'm just going to give a couple of shout outs, because there's lots of people coming in saying hello. Lots of people joining us again from last week, which is great. Lovely to see you all again. Hi to Jeremy Watt. Hi to Philip Dixon. Sorry, nearly got your name wrong. Hi to Duncan Mathieu, Michael Lowett. I think I saw Mike Stewart tuning in again. Don Mateo. So really good to see everybody back. Sorry if I've missed anybody. As I said, there's lots of comments coming in down the side, and I can't give shout outs to everybody. But yeah, really good to see you. And please, as Richard was saying, if you do have questions about the range, throw them at us.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
So, going back to the 12-year-old, that honey, the marzipan that we talk about, even a little bit of the banana, and that's banana that we actually get a little bit of in the new make. The new make is not typically Speyside. It's a lot more robust. It's a lot heavier, a lot more character in it. So we talk about the aldehydic level giving it a nutty character as well. It's just a really complex, more long chain esters giving it heavier flavors to do that. So then when you put it in, match it with good wood, you really see a fantastic product, as I say. I'm sure you'll appreciate it as well.
So another thing that I just want to throw in here while we're going through this first dram is really, Richard, tell us a little bit about what you do day to day, because I've seen you in a number of capacities now doing a little bit of absolutely everything, from hand filling bottles to rolling around empty casks to up in an office above the visitor center.
I'm really fortunate. It's a small distillery, so we have to be hands-on. Everybody has to do absolutely everything they can to get everything to work like clockwork, and we all do. We all muck in. We all get move things forward. The hand bottling you talk about is a little bit to do with as we stand at the moment. We're trying to raise a little bit for charity, raise a little bit for the NHS. So I said it's easy for me to spend a little bit of time filling some handfuls and letting people do that. I basically make sure that we comply with all regulations. I've got a great team working in the distillery, bounce some ideas about how we can nuance the new make production. There was some fantastic distillers involved in our distillery over the years. It's been a fantastic site. It had a great base. The engineering that went into it originally was really well thought out, really well designed. But beyond that, lots of very good distillers over the years have cut their teeth there and have really gone on to just put a little bit of their touch on it. And what we thought was great spirit. We knew it was really well used in blending. People like Billy had taken it. A number of the big companies obviously used it in their blends as well. And it allowed us then to say, well, how do we just tweak this? There's nothing wrong with the new make. Let's look at different aspects. And I think you touched on it last week. We were talking about longer fermentation times, slower mashing in, so it's clearer wort, so it gives you a higher ester level. Longer fermentation, so again, you get a little bit of better basket of flavors at the end of it. Slower distillation, whether it's spirit still or wash still. So all of these aspects we've worked quite hard on. And these are little bits that I get involved in. I know what we're looking for. The team builds some ideas. And then we look at the warehousing, and we have almost 100,000 casks in 17 warehouses in various different guises, but predominantly in racking. And we're trying to work at those, trying to get the sampling done so that we can put them to the master blender, Billy, who can look at them and just assess them and then move them on for quality. And then we get involved in looking at the re-rack program to give ourselves some more interesting or alternative spirits that you'll talk about over the next few weeks, I'm sure. So yeah, all good. I see a question about moving into the peated, and that ties in nicely with the McNairs. Yeah, it was a really interesting process. The distillery, to my knowledge, hadn't done any peated before. So we had to look at what we were trying to hopefully achieve out of this. We had to speak to the supplier. We had to specify the malt that we wanted. We had to specify the peat level. We had to say where we wanted the peat itself to come from. So we worked on all of these aspects. And then we took that into the distillery and said, right, what would we expect and how would we maximize what we're going to try and achieve when it comes to phenols? How can we play tunes with the cut points to get the nicest balance of phenols? Because it's not just about seaweed, it's not just about smoke, it's about balancing it across all of those to give us the actual characteristics that we would hope to look for that will ultimately mature and provide us with the GlenAllachie that is peated. And I'm sure that marketing team will be looking at all sorts of options for that in the future. Certainly the early production, which is 2 years old now, has been really well received in tastings when we've done a little bit of work on it to see how it's maturing. We chose some very expensive casks to put it in to give it its best chance to mature in the best way as well. So that's worked as well. So yeah, genuinely really enjoy the opportunity I have. I've worked in a number of places, but really this one is just full on fun. Pressure, because you've got to actually, you're looking at something that's doing so well. We need to continue to make that happen. But that's a great feeling. You know, we're really fortunate for that at the moment.
Just going to jump on a few questions that have come through. I know Duncan Mattia, who was with us last week, was asking about the Speyside, Spirit of Speyside bottling or bottlings. I believe there was one official release set to go out and another hand fill being done for the distillery. My understanding is, as I was saying last week, we are still planning on doing both. There has been a slight delay in bottling because of the current coronavirus situation. We are, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, it's the labels that are slightly holding it up, but we are doing everything we can within reason, obviously, to bring that to you. So again, you know, if you're watching week by week, keep asking. And hopefully we will have, you know, 1 week, you'll come on 1 week and we'll be able to give you the exact answer as to when it's coming and exactly what it's going to be. Another question coming in asking if we make little bottles of GlenAllachie. Answer is absolutely yes, we do. We have 5 CLs, so small miniatures, of both the 12 and 15-year-old. And we also do the 12-year-old McNairs in a 5CL, which we tried last week. And we do them in little taster packs of 3 as well. So they are available. Good one for you, I think, Richard. Any fun new experiments that you can publicly talk about?
We're constantly working on different types of wood. We're constantly working on different types of casks from different sectors of casks as well. I'm not sure that I'm the best person to ask that, because really it's all about the sales and marketing guys. I'm fortunate. I get to see what's coming in, but I'm not fortunate to know what we're allowed to talk about, if that's perfectly acceptable as an answer. I will say we have had a number of fantastic red wines from various different countries, several from France, Spain, Italy, America, and they have their own influence on the whiskey, and that's just fantastic. We've also had some really nice different kinds of standard type oaks and the finishes that they're putting on the whiskey, and the movement that will make on the whiskey's maturation as well has been fantastic. And you've got some of the classic ones that everybody would expect to see, the Sauternes, the Moscatel, the Marsala, that you're seeing as wood finishes anyway. So yeah, absolutely, lots of very interesting things, but maybe not always that we can talk about. So I hope that kind of answers it.
Fair enough. We've got another question come in from Don Mateo asking if we have any plans for the new wood finish, the batch 2, to be released in the US. I think it's fair to say everything's been a little bit delayed because of coronavirus globally. Yes, there are plans to get them there, you know, as and when we can. to put it into context, are literally, my bottles arrived yesterday. Sorry, I've not even managed to open and taste them myself. So it's that hot off the press. The whole current climate and situation kind of erupted as we were releasing and as we were getting to market, which has meant that some markets have a small amount of stock and some markets have no stock at all. But we are getting it to as many markets as we can, as quickly as we can, sensibly. I think that's sort of fair to say. Got a question.
I could probably jump in there a little bit. We certainly did all the preparation work for the new wood finishes. We'd obviously done them last year to a great deal of interest and a lot of appreciation. It's something that's been worked on. We've looked at a different set of expressions, or a slightly different set of expressions. I know that we took them all together. We sampled all of the wood. We pulled the different casks in different ways. We chose the casks to be blended together, or married together is probably a correct term. And then that was all set up, and it's been down at the bottling hall. And as you say, it's been bottled. But probably it's fair to say we live in strange times, which is a quote from many people. It's just slowed everything up. But you've got to hope that we can actually see some light at the end of the tunnel, and everybody can look forward to appreciate all these wood finishes that are going to come out. I think that's probably the best way to say about that. We have some amazing ones coming out. I have to say, I was absolutely flabbergasted when we were looking at the batches when they were being put together, when we were sampling them prior to bottling. They were just outstanding. Yeah, just amazing, very amazing to look forward to for you all.
So another question, which again I think is very well suited to yourself, Richard, coming in from Mike Stewart, is that there's a lot of emphasis on batches for the 10-year-old. Why don't the other core range products get the same treatment? He says, for example, he's just learned that the 12-year-old of the core range is produced really in small batch production.
The big difference between the two of those products that we're talking about there is the strength. So core range, nominally, when we talk about the 12, the 15, the 18 is 46. The 10-year-old is cask strength. And we did that quite deliberately. I remember David, our sales director, and Billy chatting about this and saying, look, it's unusual to see cask strength at an age statement like that. So yeah, it's small batch. It's gonna be more emphasis on that, because the strength will change from batch to batch. Whereas what we're trying to do with the 12, 15, 18 is to produce a consistency with a little bit of nuancing each time as we see the casks mature, as we choose the inventory of casks that are involved to go in it. There'll be a little bit of finessing in each time, but rest assured it'll always be great. It wouldn't be released. We wouldn't be leaving it and putting it out there. But we're trying to go for a more standardized product with those, whereas the variation in strength that you get in the 10-year-old gives you that chance to say more about the batching that's going on in that. We're not a big producer. We don't have big vats. We're just producing at a time when we feel the whiskey's ready, when we feel it's ready to go into the bottle. We take that time to do it and we release it. And that's why you see with the 15-year-old, it was very limited release, because we just felt that batch was particularly ready. And we'll find that will happen again with the next 15-year-old that comes out. It won't perhaps be a big volume of that available either, because we'll just say these casks are in prime condition to be put together.
Yeah, and talking about those small batches and how you're sort of always chasing quality, and that's the emphasis. It's, I think, important to point out the latest batch of 12-year-old hitting the shelf. Well, it's already out on the market. Just won double gold at the San Francisco Spirits Awards. So, I think that work and hard work and effort that Billy and yourselves and the rest of the distilling team and warehousing team are putting in is really starting to pay off with that great selection of casks and everything coming through. It's lovely, lovely, lovely dram. Speaking of drams, shall we move on to the next one?
I think it would be rude not to.
Love that noise. Just there again.
I'm using the computer to rest the glass on. I'm hoping John Watt, our IT guy, is not watching.
So the next dram is our 10. So we're talking about the two batches, the 12-year-old versus the 10-year-old there in that last question. And the next dram we're moving on to is the 10-year-old cask strength, the GlenAllachie 10. Here is my bottle there. This is the current batch that we're on is batch 3. So this is, again, batch release product. We've done batch 1, batch 2. We're now on to batch 3. Really important to highlight. Again, we've talked a little bit about the awards. We've only really mentioned San Francisco and World Whiskey Awards because they are two of the bigger, more prestigious award ceremonies. This particular whiskey, the 10-year-old batch 3, just won Speyside's Best Single Malt at the World Whiskey Awards, which is, fantastic achievement. We talked about how long the GlenAllachie distillers have been going, sort of just under 3 years. That liquid will have been distilled by Chivas previously, but real testament to the quality that's going on behind the scenes by the team at the distillery and Billy, led by Billy and Richard, and what they're doing with the casks and selection of spirit for bottlings. To be awarded that after such a short amount of time, I think it's great. So moving on to this one.
We talk about your rich mahogany. We're talking about on the nose, the dark chocolate, the raisins and heather honey. All of these are mainstays of our core range, and as the flavours you would expect to see from whiskies that are produced by the GlenAllachie Distillery Company. It's just a real joy. It's a nice strength. It's a little bit higher strength, as we said. So you've got to watch it. Sometimes some people like 2 or 3 drops of water. I personally am not so worried about that. So I'm quite happy to go for that. You get into that sweet spice, the orange peel. All of these aspects are really nice. I see a question asking about if that's a direction that the 10-year-old is going. It's true to say that the core range will all be based around an influence of PX and all that also. I don't talk about percentages predominantly because it changes in each batch, but also because it's not fixed. We don't want to fix it like that. We want to have that little bit of flexibility so the master blender Billy can actually work at it and try and do something with it as well. So it'll go that direction. It's an entry level into what we're trying to do. And you see that as the whiskey matures for longer in these casks, you can see the influence is greater and greater. When you talk about the 15-year-old and the colour that has. I know from the work we do in the lab that there's a real hit of colour there, which gives it a real influence on the flavour. And yes, the wood that we choose will affect the 10-year-old as well. So you'll see that flavour change slightly, but we would always hope for the best and for something that you would enjoy and get a great experience from. So,
bit about this whiskey here. The batch 3 that we are tasting through at the moment is bottled at 58.2 ABV. As mentioned previously, non-chill filtered, no caramel colouring, and comes from what I can only refer to as a real hodgepodge of casks that make up the batch. So there's a bit of first fill bourbon cask, second fill bourbon, PX, puncheons, Oloroso sherry, and even some virgin oak being thrown in there as well. We have had one gentleman ask Richard if you're willing to allude to the exact makeup, but
no, that's what I was saying. That would definitely not be something that we would normally talk about. We're quite happy to talk about the casks that are used, but the exact makeup is really something that we keep in house. As you say, it's important for us to be able to work within that and try and work a little bit of flexibility that we get from not defining exactly, because that's not what we're about. Each individual cask is sampled that would be going forward for this. It's reviewed, it's adjudged to see if it will go into the next level. Any movement in cask when it gets re-racked into a different cask, that's all gone through a process. It's then we constantly monitor, we constantly sample. The warehouse team will tell you that they're doing lots of work with racking new make, but they're also doing huge amounts about sampling, looking at the casks that we've got. And it's not just about going in, and certain casks, like a virgin cask, you would go in almost immediately, say 3 months, then you might go back in again 6 months, because the reaction that it's going to have is very quick. Whereas when you're looking at something like a port pipe or even to a lesser extent a sherry puncheon, you can be comfortable that they'll take slightly longer to get to the position where there's a sort of constant impact on those as well. So we have to monitor certain casks more. Chinkapin as well, one of these other casks that we look at. You're constantly looking at that because it's got a heavy influence on the whiskey. It comes in straight away. Lots of woody character. Some really nice notes in that as well. So yeah, we do work with a lot of the casks. We do change the ratios, and we try and get the best out of each cask for its particular direction of travel and what we want to ultimately produce at the end of it. So
wonderful.
Hopefully, without telling the percentage, that'll give them something to think about.
Well, following on with questions on the batch 3 10-year-old, we've got a great one come in from Fiona, which again I think is unfortunately I wasn't in the company at the time, so can't really answer this one. So it's a great one to throw at you. But what's the difference in casks used between batch 1, 2, and then onto this one, the batch 3? I mean, Fiona's coming in saying that this particular one, the batch 3, is her favourite and very different from the previous batch 2.
I think there's just slightly more influence and slightly more time in the cask that we chose was one of the big influences, and the ratio did slightly change. There's a slightly bigger percentage of the PX that you would expect, and that there's part of the reason for the colour change as well. In general, we've just had the whiskey under our control for longer, so it's had more of the influence of what we're trying to achieve on it as well. There's a nice question from a friend asking where my red trousers are. I'll be quite honest, what with all the rush to get online, it's the first time I've really done this. I just didn't think about it. If I get invited back, I'll be putting the red trousers on.
Yeah. We've got a gentleman coming in asking if there is going to be a rum cask matured, finish, or release.
The simple answer to that is yes, there will be. I think the marketing team have been doing an amazing job to try and get all of these products out to launch and develop all of the aspects behind it and provide you guys in sales something to go out there and show. So it'll be a bit of time, and I'm sure that's probably one that Fiona could type an answer to, or Colette can type an answer to and say, yeah, that's planned for. We're doing a lot with rum. We've been working with rum for a number of years now. We feel that it's something the distillery has the ability to work with. We have a lot of knowledge, obviously, about wood, about the influence of wood on high-strength spirit. And realistically, if you buy good rum and then put it into good wood and you allow it time, you'll get an amazing product. I personally think while the distillery is about single malt Scotch whisky, or McNair's as well, the what used to be called vatted malt, we will have a presence in that rum sector because we've purchased some great rums and we're seeing it mature at the moment. So it's out there, it's coming. And if the Whiskey Festival had still been on, there was a little taster of that. I was going to spend a bit of time in the warehouse showing the different casks and showing the influence they have on the rum that we have already purchased. So yeah, and then that plays nicely. It gives us our own rum casks. It allows us to put whiskey in them and mature it. So yeah, looking forward to it. It's a personal favourite of mine. I love whiskey matured in a rum cask. I think there's a really nice balance there. The sweetness sometimes and the different balances that you get out of that give it a really nice finish and a really nice, enjoyable dram to finish a day off if you get the chance.
Okay, well, sticking with finishes, we've got another question come in from Stuart Monroe saying, do you have a preference of sherry cask, Oloroso or PX, maybe even a Fino? I'm going to jump in and give my answer because it's quite short first. Personally, I'm a big sherry head, love sherry bombs, love a real good PX punch-in finish. I don't mind a combination of the two at all. In fact, I know the 15-year-old, which I think out of the whole core range in particular is my personal favorite, is a combination of both PX and Oloroso finishes. But for me, I think it's got to be, it's that raisined fruit and sort of the mocha and dark chocolates and things that you get coming through from the PX that I really fall for every time. What about yourself, Richard?
Yeah, I'm typically Scottish. I like sweet things. I like Christmas. I like all these flavors you get from PX. I find it hard to look beyond that. I've done it like yourself. I spent a little bit of time experimenting with just, just the product before we get it for the cask, and look at the Fino, the Amontillado, all of these other ones. And realistic, they're great drinks in a way, but actually, no, it comes back to that sort of Christmas cake. All these standard sort of dark treacle, that sort of really nice dates, raisins, all of these are just sort of married with sort of cinnamon spice that you can get from the whiskey. Just fantastic. So yeah, PX for me as well. Oloroso was interesting, but not quite so much perhaps for me.
Yeah, that's good. And I quite like the PX because, for me anyway, it's a little bit of a point of difference. You're getting an awful lot of Oloroso finishes, I think, out there on the market. Not quite so many PX, and it's quite nice to see that that's become very much a backbone within the core range.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. We've worked hard to build a relationship with a bodega that produces some really nice quality casks. So you're right. It's worked really well. I've seen a number of these casks coming over the last few years. We're always sampling. We're always nosing the cask as it comes in. It's part of what we do, whether it's a red wine cask or whether it's a sherry cask. It comes in the door. You take the bung out. You look at it. You make sure it's in the condition you expect. And what we've found with the supplier we have, he specializes in that, and he gives us a really great product that we can be comfortable with. And then that obviously helps. That's part of the reason I think I like the PX as well. And that's also why we're able to do so much with it as well.
Okay. Another quick question for you coming in from Carl Glenn of Newats whiskey group in the northeast of England, who we did a whiskey or question and answer session with Billy Walker on Friday night with. And he's asking me to ask the same question that we got to ask Billy. So he asked Billy if there was one particular cask in mind that he believes is going to be an absolute stunner. And Billy was so precise that he gave not just a vintage, not just a cask type, but he actually gave the exact cask number. And what Carl's asking is, do you share the same cask in mind, or do you have a different one?
Yeah, I'm frantically looking in the column, the questions, to see if somebody's in the background has told me what cask. No, I didn't hear Billy's answer, and to be honest, he's probably has spent a lot of time looking at them. I used to be like that. When we first started sort of showing our distributors around, and we spent a bit of time at the distillery, we would often go down and show the influence of the wood on the whiskey, how it would change colour, how it would change the note on the nose. And I routinely went to the PX. It was my go-to cask. There was a number of the casks that were in there, some 1989 and some 1990 that were in there. They were fantastic. They gave an amazing aroma. They gave an amazing look to it as well. But over the months, and we'd done some really nice work, we actually did some Moscatel and Marsala. And I have to say, I graduated towards the Marsala, and I graduated to a couple of casks. And I have to say now they've gone. They've actually been put in the next bottling. So I can't give you the name and the number and the cask year because it's already been used. But that was the one. Going forward, I'm now looking to the red wine casks. There's a couple, one from the Bordeaux area of France, which outstanding. The whiskey put in, it was a 2011. It wasn't particularly old whiskey, obviously, in terms of what we've got in our inventory. But the influence of the whiskey and then the cask, there was this amazing few months where it was almost just like, like a rosé wine. It was bright, it was sparkling, it was really vivid. And I had a conversation with Billy about it, and he was saying, just relax, watch over time. And that's true, almost a year now, and you're beginning to see it's moved from that really sort of pinky color, and it's now deepening down and getting more of a ruby sort towards a ruby direction. You still see that it's like a heavier rosé wine. just absolutely fantastic. And I'll look forward to that when that comes out in an expression as well.
Okay,
so, yeah.
I'm glad you took me to see those casks when I was up, but I'm a little disappointed you didn't take me across to see those 1990 PXs now you've mentioned them. But there's time for that.
Yeah, there'll be time. Next time you're up.
Another gentleman, Jeremy Watt, jumping in, asking about the White Heather releases coming through. I think it's safe to say it was planned for pretty much about now. I think it's safe to say that everything's been put on hold at the moment while the coronavirus situation is being dealt with, because there's no, as we've found with the wood finishes, they came out literally as everything kind of took hold within Europe and America and various other countries around the world. And I think, to make sure that everybody gets it at the same time, to make sure that it's rolled out correctly and we can really get behind it, we have taken the decision to sort of pause it for now. It will come this year. We just need to get, to unite and get past the current situation.
I think maybe if I make comment, we've done a lot of work on that, the White Heather, even to the point where in the past few days the guys have been looking at the casks, taking samples, getting it all prepped up, and looking at the way that those whiskies are actually maturing, or the White Heather whiskey is actually maturing. It's going to be good when it comes out. So it'll be a fun thing for you guys to chat about on an event like this. Let everybody see it. And we're just really incredibly happy the way that it's maturing in the cask that Billy's chosen. He had a quite distinct attitude of how he wanted to proceed and what influence he wanted to have on that whiskey to make it as he would want it to see it and want to present it to everybody to enjoy. So, it's important that it's happening, and it will. And you'll just have to. It's a little bit of anticipation. Again, it's something to look forward to.
So, have you got a clean glass?
I do.
Shall we move on to the third one before we take some more questions?
I think we should.
Now, I'm being asked to do something quite unusual here, which is why I kind of chuckled halfway through Richard's last answer. And I'm going to name and shame. Fiona in our marketing team has asked me specifically to do a Lion King moment when I reveal the next whiskey. And I think this is, it's again, testament to the hard work and effort that Billy, Richard, the team are putting into the whiskies coming from GlenAllachie and the GlenAllachie company. And that is because that's about as good a Lion King moment as you're going to get from me, I'm afraid, Fiona. The McNair's 21, which I have here in front of me, has just been crowned World's Best Blended Malt at the World Whisky Awards 2020. So following on from the 12-year-old, which we tasted, Ronan.
Just interrupting quickly, I can't believe you didn't sing the song in the background.
I'm not sure you want me to sing the song in the background.
I'm disappointed. I mean, I'll get away with it because Lion King's clearly not something for my generation. But I'm a little bit disappointed that you didn't go fired right into it as you lifted the bottle across. And then,
I can add Fiona to this. She could sing it for us if she wants. she can add, but okay. No, so anyway, following on from the 12-year-old McNair's, which we tasted, Ronan and I tasted through last week, which won double gold gold at the San Francisco Awards this year. The 21-year-old, I want to say we were lucky enough, but I'm going to be as bold and as brash as to say it wasn't luck. It was hard work, effort, and perseverance by Billy, Richard, and the whole team behind it. But they crafted something truly special. And this particular whiskey has been awarded, as I've just mentioned, World's Best Blended Malt at the World Whisky Awards. Similar to the 12-year-old glass that we tasted last week, it is a makeup of 4 different single malts, 2 from Speyside, 2 from Islay, one of the Speyside single malts is GlenAllachie. Now, before the questions start rolling in, no, we are not going to tell you the makeup of what the other three are, and no, we are not going to tell you the percentage makeup of what the other three are. Just that one is GlenAllachie, which is obviously going to be one of the major components, and that there are 3 other single malts that go into it, 2 from Islay and another Speyside single malt. Similar cask makeup to the whiskey which we tasted last week, the 12-year-old, in that we are bringing in some virgin oak, some Oloroso sherry, and also some red wine casks. And I'm then going to pass this over to Richard to tell you a little bit more about it, purely because, being operations director, he has much more day-to-day input into what goes into the bottle. I just sell the bottles.
I have to say, this is a fantastic. We talk about that range, the McNair's range, and how there's a non-age statement. It's a bit bolder, a bit bigger, a bit more peaty in your face. The 12-year-old has a sort of slight mellowing of that peat, and as you'd expect, as it gets to 21-year-old, it's just an influence. It's just an interest. It's an added depth of character on a really well-balanced whiskey. We talk about that butterscotch colour on it, and then you get into just that really nice peat smoke, and it's not seaweed, it's not medicinal, it's actually smoky, and it's just giving you something that really, really enthuses the nose, gives you a chance to enjoy it, and then maybe a little bit in the background, some fudge, just the sweetness you'd expect, probably coming. Sorry, I'm seeing a question now, and I shouldn't look at it. I should take my glasses off while I'm doing this. One of our colleagues can't get online, so he can't ask questions. I'm quite glad about that, I'll say. So, but anyway, yeah. So absolutely amazing nose, not too strong. And then when you go into the taste, what do you talk about? I suppose there's almost a bit of tobacco in the beginning that we talk about. I get a little bit of polished leather, and then I move into the really nice sweet peat flavors. They've had a chance to mellow. We've changed the sort of ratios between the phenols and guaiacols and thiols, and that gives you that change, and it allows it to really just be an enjoy. It's just tickling the tongue. It's not too bold. It's not in your face. It's not going to burst somebody who's never tried it before. It's a really fantastic introduction into peat. It's just an amazing, and then into vanilla, some nice spice as well, sweet spices. Just a great dram to enjoy, And I'm really fortunate because I don't often get to drink the 21-year-old, but tonight is a good reason to be on. So.
No, absolutely. It's something really different for me, because when I was first brought in and told the makeup of some of the McNairs, and I've got nothing against peated whiskies. I've got nothing against Islay whiskies. They're just generally not my go-tos. As I've already said, I'm a big sort of fan of quite heavily sherried, sweeter whiskies, like Richard was saying before. He's got a sweet tooth, so have I. But on this, I get this wonderful, soft sort of creaminess coming through just before that sort of what I will call soft peat. It's not aggressive. It's not in your face. It's not this huge sort of TCP bomb that almost, I've had some.
Well, that would be reasonable. That would be reasonable to expect that. You as you see, that it's one of the characters about phenol. It's volatile, and as you see it mature, and when you're in the distillery and we're doing new make production, the whole place is reeking of peat. It's just a fantastic environment. The first couple of days that you walk into it, you're just you're blown away by that sort of level of flavor. But over the years, and when it's in the cask, you see it slowly mature out, and you lose some of that because it is so volatile. And it makes older peated whiskies really interesting in my book, and that's part of the reason why you can do a whiskey like that. And I defy anybody who says, "Well, I'm not really a peat fan," not to enjoy trying something like that. I always say that with any whiskey, you just got to try and find the right one.
Absolutely. I think I'm case in point in that, since working for GlenAllachie, some of the peated production, whether it be in McNair's or whether it be some of that treasured GlenAllachie peated spirit that you let me taste the last time we were up at the distillery together, has really been a bit of an eye opener in that there's some great quality spirit coming out, and this 21-year-old is case in point. It's absolutely stunning. Such a long finish on it. I'm still chewing it. It's great. Really, really, really good. I've got a gentleman asking, Philip Dixon, asking if we can confirm the ppm of this particular whiskey. Do you? I don't know that off the top of my head. Do you?
No, I look at more of the ppms on the new make. I don't believe that there's too many ways of analysing for phenol levels. So I know in actual malt, you can look at it in many different ways prior to it being used in the whiskey production. So I tend to walk away from the actual defined analysis and just say, is it heavy? Is it Isla style? Or is it, more what I would call Bayside style peat? We get peat from St. Fergus predominantly. We have tried peat from other areas. It has an influence on the spirit that we're doing. But we always specify, a heavy or a very heavy peat level for new make. I don't specify. It has to be 80 ppm because I don't think that's fair, because I know how hard it is to make good peat when you're a maltster. I used to work in the industry, and I think it was a little bit, sometimes people say, I want 12 ppm in my spec. And I knew that was very, very difficult for the production guys to do. So we tried to avoid it. So, yeah, we do know it has been analysed. So we'll have the figures, but it's not something I'm using routinely when I'm looking at any of these.
Whatever it is, I can honestly assure you it's very, very, very good. Following the peat, following the peat line that we were just discussing there, and you mentioned about the new make and the smells and things of the distillery, we've got a question coming in from Mike Duncan saying, is GlenAllachie's first peated new make maturing nicely?
Yes, is the simple answer. There's no other way to say it. We were absolutely astounded by. We had some, as I said earlier, we had some discussions around the table of what we were trying to achieve. Is exactly what you say. You get the whiteboard up. You say, look, what will happen if we do this with the cut points? What will happen if we do that? And what will happen if we use this peat from this source on this barley? So you can trend to a direction of travel and say, yeah, we're hoping it's going to go there. You can't be 100% certain. It's where the art comes. So we did the cut points. We did a little bit of sampling all the time. And we were incredibly blown away, as I said, about the new make. And then we put it in good casks. Periodically, we go back, we sample, we nose, we analyse. We've sent that away for analysis, definitely. We know the phenol levels and all of those. And I have to say, yes, it's just amazing. When people nose it, when you see the colour development, a lot of people say this must be a much older whiskey with a much more mature age to it. And you yourself have seen it. I think you would give testament to that as well.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm just going to say very quickly, we're going to do about another 10 minutes, purely because I'm just conscious of time. And obviously, I'm certainly going to go out there and show my support for the NHS this evening. And I'm sure many of you are. To our colleagues abroad, or to our listeners abroad, that's basically us doing our thing and showing our support for our healthcare service that is really pulling out all the stops to keep the country moving at the moment and hold everything together. So we have every Thursday night at 8 o'clock in the UK. We are showing our support for our healthcare system. We've got a question coming in specifically on the McNairs, saying, how does the 12-year-old compare to the 21? Now, before you jump in, we've got one of our other colleagues, Juliet Buchan, giving a very good answer to this, which is that McNairs 21 is a bit like you, Richard. It's a lively older expression who doesn't stop sharing his enthusiasm, which I think is it in a nutshell, in that, the 12-year-old
older. She's not coming back to work tomorrow. Oh, wait a minute, she's working from home.
The 12-year-old's fantastic value. It really, really is. The quality of liquid is stunning. We went through it last week, and it really does show a brilliant, well-rounded whiskey with some great peat, but also sweet notes and a really good finish to it. This is just that next level. The finish goes on for days. Literally, everything is still going through there right now. And
are you speaking about me still, or the whiskey?
No, I'm definitely talking about the whiskey now.
Okay, that's fine.
The peat for me personally is perfect. It's exactly where I would want it to be. But having said that, I know lots of people that I've sort of shown this to over the I'm not going to say the past few weeks, the few weeks before that. And it's sorry, that's my other half letting the dog out, just in case anybody's wondering what's diving past. And the few people I've shown it to, particularly within the whiskey world, have absolutely loved this. It is just such a well-balanced, well-constructed malt, or blended malt. What are your thoughts?
No, I couldn't put it better myself. I think the two of you guys in sales show why you're in sales. You've said it beautifully. Maybe, as you say, the 12-year-old is a bit more vibrant and in your face and a bit more lively, like yourself and Ronan, perhaps. But I'm going to change it. I know there'll be other questions. I'm going to go back to one that happened last week, and you guys were asked what your favorite cocktail was. And I'm going to say this 21-year-old actually lends itself to something that I think is really interesting. So a lot of times I have friends who drink a lot of Negronis, and I know Ronan fancies himself as a bit of a Don Draper character. So I'm going to take the Sterling approach here and say that I would suggest changing out the gin and the Negroni and trying it with the 21-year-old peat. It'll just balance itself out beautifully. You'll get that smoky character. It'll just be absolutely perfect. And that's what I'm going to drink after we finish tonight as a wee celebration and a wee thank you to the NHS. I'm going to do something like that. So I'm going to make myself one of those, do a hand clap and remember all these guys that are putting unbelievable amounts of effort and work in at what we would call the front line now, you know?
Because I love them. So
I don't know if you've changed your opinion on a cocktail or...
No, I'm going to stick with what I said last week, but you're telling me a smoked Negroni using whiskey, not gin.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'll give that a go.
I think it's definitely worth considering.
Okay. Got a good question for you coming in, Richard. Saying from Stuart Monroe, asking, what is your proudest moment with GlenAllachie so far?
I think that was the award ceremony we went to last year. It's the culmination of a lot of work when we got Distillery of the Year. It was fantastic. The bulk of the team had managed to make it down. And it was unexpected. We'd done a little bit of work with the guys that were putting the awards together. They'd come up to the distillery. They'd spent some time with us. And they've been, consummate professionals. They'd done some really nice photography. They'd done some nice interviewing. They'd spent a little bit of time finding out what made us as a company work and tick. And I have to say, going to that event and when we won the award and then lost the award, no, I better say that. Long story. When we won the award that night, I have to say, yeah, it was a team thing. Everybody was involved. Everybody had put the effort into it. And we got something for what we were doing and what we were achieving. So, yeah, absolutely fantastic. It was just a brilliant experience.
I'm just going to say thank you to Duncan Mattia, who is thanking us for bringing these tastings, these live tastings to him. Just to let you know, certainly for the foreseeable future, we're planning lots of different things. We were discussing this for a lot of this afternoon as to what we can do and how we can make it different, what other whiskies we can bring to you, or just other parts of GlenAllachie. So for the foreseeable future, hopefully, week on week, every Thursday at 7, these will continue. Jumping on another question. So this is definitely, this is yours, because I know you've been hand filling some of these over the course of this week. So regarding this is coming from John Molden, regarding the Chinkapin casks, what he would like to know the difference, if any, to a standard oak or bourbon cask.
Yeah, I think there's an awful lot more of a woody note to it. It's got a tighter grain. It seems to be slower growing. It's got a lot more of a sort of almost that sort of sappiness note to it that I find, and that's a personal tasting note. That's what I see in it as well. It's a cask you got to be really careful with, because as I say, it has a strong influence very quickly. And that's why we use it in that way as a conditioning cask or taking that spirit on. So yeah, it's just a little bit of a different direction on that oak because of it, because of the history behind the tree itself, and the influence it has. So yeah, we've only got, well, that's not fair. We've done a single cask handful at the distillery, and it's gone incredibly well. It's just a little bit unfortunate with the current climate that people can't come and visit, and maybe that's one for you and I to organise, and the marketing team, Fiona and Colette, to say, look, we'll just take a camera and we'll just walk around the distillery one evening when I'm doing a security check and just show people little different aspects of it. So something else to look forward to. But yeah, Chinkapin, really interesting, gives a really nice woody note, gives a really nice character as well.
Okay. I'm going to finish this off, I think, with a question of my own for you, Richard, because it's something I've not asked you yet, and it's something that I think a lot of people would be really interested to know. Out of everything produced at GlenAllachie so far, or everything in bottle at GlenAllachie currently, I think is a better way to put this. What is your favourite? If you had to pick one, the 12, the 15, the McNair's 21, the 25, one of the wood finishes, what would be your go-to whiskey from GlenAllachie Distillery?
It's really interesting because over the years now we've been putting these different bottlings together, and we've been working, and when I remember when we looked at the 10-year-old, and I thought, God, that's an amazing, the very first batch, I thought that was an amazing whiskey, the nose on it was just fantastic, and then next to it was the 12-year-old, and you thought, God, that's even more intense and more interesting flavors, but it was slightly different, more typical of the core range. And a similar occasion occurred when we were doing last year's wood finishes, and there was a rye, I think there was a port, and there was a PX, and we did the port first, and I thought, God, that's everything you expect from port, beautiful color, beautiful flavor. And then we did the PX, and I thought, again, back to what I said about PX, just delivered in that way. But actually it was a rye, and I was quite surprised because I suppose I shouldn't have been, but I was surprised that it was the youngest one. But yeah, it had there's a really nice sweetness to it. It moves into sort of black and white pepper cracked and a nice spice, and then mellows into a great GlenAllachie finish. It's just, so yeah, if I had to be honest, it's nothing expensive, it's nothing fancy, just their last year's rye wood finish, which I have several bottles of, so I'm not going to run out of. Okay.
Really, really interesting. Yeah, something I wasn't expecting that from you. I've got to say that. But
no, it's I'm not, and a lot of people would have said, "Oh, I've tried the 1989, I've tried this," but then I just thought the way that rye cask interacts with our whiskey, and almost we have a spicy note in the GlenAllachie, and it just mellowed that spice out, made it bigger, and just changed it with that rye sweetness in the rye cask.
Okay, well, I'm going to have to cut you off, I am afraid, because it is now 3 minutes to, so you've got 3 minutes to get to your front door and start clapping. I'm going to say to everybody for joining us, thank you so much. Richard, for giving up your evening and joining me this evening. Again, huge thank you. It's been a real revelation to be able to talk to somebody behind the action at GlenAllachie, as opposed to having myself and Ronan, who are out on the road all the time, sort of waxing lyrical, which is something we do all the time. It's really interesting to get, really behind the scenes. So thank you so much for joining me. Everybody that's tuned in, thank you so much for watching us. If I can ask everybody in the UK to please go up their doorsteps and start clapping, that would be very much appreciated. And I think finally is the thing to say, please everybody stay safe. Obviously we know what's going on at the moment, and that is absolute paramount. So, and
I'll just say that as well. I'll say thank you for letting me join you, Ben. It was absolutely a pleasure. Stay safe, everybody, and also a little bit of respect to the guys out there at the front line that really put in the effort in. Thanks again.
Have a wonderful evening, guys. Catch you later.